In Focus is powered in part by Go Chevrolet at I-25 and the Boulder Turnpike. Your source for new or used cars and trucks, and reliable service for most makes and models. Just visit goautochevrolet.com.
Welcome to In Focus with Eden Lane.
The Book of Mormon is making its first national tour debut here in Denver at the Ellie Caulkins Opera House. Tonight is the first installment of my visit with the creators and some of the cast. We begin with Colorado natives Matt Stone and Trey Parker. Welcome back to Colorado.
Thanks. Thank you.
Everyone was so delighted to hear that your national tour was kicking off here in Denver. Did you have any influence over that?
Yeah, I don't know that
by
it was
being from Colorado.
Yeah, by being from Colorado, and then it was for the thing is that it all happened so fast. I mean, it went from an idea of, wow, I hope we last a year on Broadway, to, oh wow, we're going to have 4 companies of this going around doing that, and so it really was suddenly. We realized that we had all these bigger decisions to make, and they're like, where do you want to start the national tour? And we were basically just like, oh, we have to think of that, we hadn't even remotely gotten that far, and then I don't know who first said, well, you could do Denver where you came from. We're like, that'd be awesome. Could we do that? And then
because there wasn't a theater big enough in Conifer.
Right.
Conifer.
That'd
be great.
Conifer
Launch it in Conifer. And also selfishly for us, like we have to spend 3 or 4 weeks in whatever city we launch it in, and we'd rather spend it here. I mean, honestly, because I have family and friends. I'm seeing all my friends, and my sister and my mom, and everybody lives here. So compared to staying in Seattle or San Diego or someplace, it's great for us to be here. So
you spent about 7 years getting it to Broadway. Is that pretty accurate?
Yeah.
Workshops, all of that, with mostly the same actors through that whole period.
Pretty much.
And we'd call them up every 6 months and be like, hi, we want to do it again. We'd just do a little workshop, and then we'd have to go back and do South Park. So it was 7 years, but in the beginning, at least, it was sort of stop and start.
Yeah, whenever we had to go to South Park, we had to put it down and then go to South Park, and then we'd start listening to the songs we'd recorded and stuff, and be like, oh, this is funny, and start to get excited about it again, and then put it down again and do South Park. So,
What's the biggest difference between mounting it that way with the same group of actors, but now you're watching a whole new cast take it on and make it their own? Yeah,
it really is like having a kid, way more than what we're used to. Doing a Broadway show is like having a kid, because you kind of have the kid, and then you've got to let it have its own life. You can't try to control it too much. You've got to let it become what it wants to become, and yet you've also got to be a good parent and be there to kind of direct it the right way, and it will act out and have this life of its own. But it's crazy, because we're just used to having a movie that one day is just done. And it's like, okay, well, there it is, and this is how we intended it to be. And even an episode of South Park there's a final day where it's like, there it is, and it's done, and we're not going to touch it again.
And you collaborate with the same people over and over again.
Yeah, and it's usually us. You know what I mean? And we're acting everything, and we're doing all the voices. And with this, you're really such a hugely collaborative thing, that then you do it and you get it done, okay, done, and then you do it again, for this whole thing. And we're not changing anything script-wise or song-wise. I mean, it's the exact same show, but it has its own personality just because the entire cast is different.
Yeah. Every actor that touches the role is going to
bring something to it. That's a totally different experience for us coming from film and TV, where it's like, well, that's the character. They're on screen, and like Trey said, you want to make sure that the show's intact and still do what you want to do, but you want to make sure the actors kind of have freedom to find whatever they're going to do with the character, within the arc of the character. So we did the first read through with this cast in New York a few weeks ago, and that was the first time we heard these new people do this show, and it was awesome. It was so much better than I thought it was going to be. I really was like a little bit scared going in. I'm like, I don't know how I'm going to react to this. I don't know how I'm going to like it, and I walked out. I thought it was great. It's really exciting to see really good actors do something even new that you didn't know. Oh yeah, that you could do that with that scene.
When you began this process, your musical experience was your first movie, Cannibal, right?
Yeah.
And you kind of only had Fiddler on the Roof as your frame of reference for...
You've done some reading, I see. Trey definitely grew up doing musicals, and he's like the musical guy out of the both of us. My musical experience came from Fiddler on the Roof. My mom...
Just a recording?
just the album Fiddler on the Roof, she played over and over and over, and I think it was to try to get me to be more Jewish and hopefully to convince me to be more bar mitzvahed, which didn't work. But
she had to do something in Colorado.
What else are you gonna do? But the other big part of it for me was the Monty Python movies. Always they had one musical
number.
Yeah, number and they're amazingly well done. You know, I know they're just single numbers, but that's my musical, background.
So you really didn't know what you were getting yourself into.
Well, I did. When I met Trey in college, we did Cannibal, and then from then on, now I do because we do so much musical stuff on the show. But growing up in Colorado, I had no experience in theater or anything like that.
So if the recording of Fiddler on the Roof was your first introduction to musical theater, what was yours?
It was the same. I mean, growing up in Conifer, we didn't have a whole lot of live theater. So,
did you come down to Denver?
So, I did. I actually came down here. I think the first thing I saw here was Cats, maybe. And then I remember seeing Starlight Express here. But really, I mean, those weren't my big favorite. I loved the old Rodgers and Hammerstein stuff that I got to see just on VHS, same kind of thing, where it was like, because I really did grow up more with a love of movies, and I wanted to be a filmmaker and make make television and film. But in that, I loved musicals the most, and I loved Singing in the Rain, and I loved all the and I just loved it as a movie. And it didn't even it wasn't even so much of like, wow, the stage. It was just like, wow, movie musicals. Like I really grew up more infatuated with movie musicals than with the actual stage.
So how did you translate that? How did you find translating that to a physical audience interaction with your work?
It was a bitch because we're so used to we're also known in Hollywood as the guys that don't test anything. We don't believe in filling a theater with people and sitting in the back and taking notes.
We don't focus group.
We don't focus group.
No.
We just never believe. We just always like, if we think it's funny, then
focus
we're
group
gonna put
with
it
each
there.
other.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but I mean, most Hollywood, movies, they're focus group to death. I mean, and really, I mean to death.
Sometimes it really shows.
Yeah, and it really shows.
Yeah, I mean, they really you can tell it's been committed. But with theater, you can't ignore what the audience thinks. You can be like, I don't care, it's funny. If there's 1,000 people there not laughing at a joke, you got to change it. You can't quite have that same ethic, because in theater, the audience is part of the show. It's part of the experience.
It's a character,
It's a character,
working with the audience as a character member, and then really writing the songs to say, okay, stop, hold on, I'm going to tell you something right now, because this is important for you to hear. Right. That's what I loved about theater, was like, unlike a movie where you're just kind of you're spying in on everyone's lives.
And of course, you hated the change process.
Yeah, of course, but I love that feeling of being drawn into it. And so that's the thing we're trying to do here too with these bigger theaters because actually the theaters on the road are way bigger than what we deal with in New York. And so it still is a matter of trying to really draw everyone in, even people that are way up there.
Your first song that you did with Bobby was opening number.
Yeah.
What was the song that made you realize you had a full-on show? Something more than a sketch, where you knew this project was really going to work.
I think when we had the idea, and we hadn't written the song yet, but we had the idea that we should do a song like in The King and I, when the woman tells the story of Uncle Tom's Cabin in her version of it. And we kind of had this idea early on of like, it'd be great that they're hearing the Mormon story, and then these people will, in a very King and I, we kept talking about King and I, we're like, we should have that moment in Act 2 when they regurgitate it and say, here's what we now believe. And I think it's when
we heard you say.
Yeah, and it's like when we had that as the hook of Act 2, that's when I think we really felt like we had a show that was going to be about something and actually really have a place to go, and everything was about getting to that moment.
Yeah.
It feels like, for me, that this show, aside from all the things that people want to put on it, it feels like this show is so familiar in that it's a coming of age and fish out of water kind of combination. You go off to college, you go on your mission, you
think you know everything, and then you
find out you don't,
and find out you don't, and then you find out you're okay with that, and yeah, it totally is. And
was that the right take? Was that
absolutely?
Yeah, absolutely.
No,
it's about being 19. At 19 you think you know everything. You know everything, and at like 23 you don't. You know nothing.
Well, and trying to write something where, of course, you've got to have characters that people identify with. So it's like, how are we going to have people identify with these strictly religious, devout missionaries? And you realize, for exactly that reason, it's like, well, a lot of us can't relate to that, but we can relate to being 19 and being out of your home and put somewhere that you're really shocked about and having to deal. We can all relate to that. And so that's where a lot of that, exactly what
when you're whatever your parents, or the rule book your parents gave you, all of a sudden you get out in the world and you're like, where's the page on this? You know, and you realize that you're not at all equipped to deal with this.
What was the first time you did that, where you went, where's the page on this?
You know, it's funny. It's like that's really is college for me. I grew up in Littleton. I went to school in Boulder. They're like, what, 40-minute drive away? It's not like so many people
You didn't
have
get that college away from home experience.
No, but it was exciting, but it was wrenching in its own ways. I'm like ashamed to admit that it was like, oh my God, I had to grow up, having moved away from home, and I was 40 minutes away, and
you could still go home with laundry.
I could still go home if I wanted to, and people, like these kids, they go halfway around the world to a place that they have no idea what they're doing there.
And mine came from I did get a slap down because I grew up in Conifer, and my whole dream, especially by high school, I was like, I cannot wait till I can get out of this place and I can go to a place that has the movies and the theater and all this stuff. And so as soon as I was out of high school, I went to Berklee College of Music in Boston, and I was just downtown Boston, and I lasted exactly 4 months, and I was like, get me out of here. And I transferred back to CU so I could be in Boulder and be in Colorado, and just like, it was,
Did you stick with music at CU?
Yeah, I started music there, and then they started a film degree while we were there. So.
And that's how we got started with Cannibal, was your first project together.
Yeah.
So you started with a musical.
Yeah. And now we end with one.
Now we end with one.
No. And now you're working at the national tour, the first national tour.
Yes.
What does that feel like to realize that idea you had turned out to be so big that it is a hot ticket on Broadway, and it sold out in 5 hours at its first stop?
It's a trip. It's not what we expected. We really loved working on it. We loved working with Bobby. We had faith in it, obviously, because we stuck with it. But I really, if you were to ask me, and people did before we opened on Broadway, what do you want out of this, or what do you think is going to happen? You don't even want to say anything. You don't want to curse anything. But I really felt like we could run for a year and a half and be seen as a success. Like, forget the money involved or like whatever, but just be like, we came and we did it. We opened a musical on Broadway and we did it, and we didn't fall on our faces. That's what we wanted to do. That's what we thought we could maybe do. And because we've always been the guys who are kind of over in the corner making jokes, that we're not quite mainstream. We're kind of over here.
Yes, I remember the Grammys or the Oscars where you showed up in the
like that's
yes, I remember that.
That's ourselves. That's what we do. We're always kind of over here doing the stuff that 20% of the people really love. 80% of the people are like, what are you guys doing over there? And this musical, it's been much broader than we ever thought.
Now this huge machine has grown up around your work.
Yeah.
Very different from the huge machine that's grown up around South Park.
Yeah.
And one's in LA, South Park's in LA, and now we've got Book of Mormon is really based in New York. So it's cool that way too, being in New York and like having something that's like, go to 49th Street, like that's our thing. We're part of the fabric of the city. That's been pretty cool.
And now it will be in cities all across the country.
Yeah.
One of my I love a lot of these songs. They're really hysterical. But one of my favorite songs I like on two levels. It's funny, but it has this, it's I Believe.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a funny song, but if you don't listen to all of the lyrics, it could be that real thing that someone's singing that they believe. And it's funny you say you believed in this project.
Yeah.
And in a weird way, it was like we talked about that with there was a faith we had to have in the project. The character in I Believe, that's the point when he's been basically had his faith knocked out of him by going to a war-torn, place with starving people. And then he just doubles down and says, you know what? No, you just got to double down. That's what faith's about. You just got to double down and go for it. And when that song works, it's like one of the best parts of the show.
When it came from the idea of it, came from a joke. It came from the fact that the more Mormons we talk to, there's this big thing in Mormonism, which is basically if you ask God, if you're not sure if Mormonism is right, if God is real, then all you have to do is close your eyes and ask God, but fully believe that you're asking God and He's there fully believe in it and ask him and you'll get your answer. So basically they're saying just totally believe in it and then you'll believe in it. Well, and it's like we're like, how do we turn that into a song? You know, like that, and that was really the whole.
I'm glad you wrote that song, and I'm glad you had enough belief in the idea to put this show together. I just love it, and I can't wait to share it with all my friends across the country.
Great, thank you.
Cool. Right.
Thanks so much.
Thanks.
Thank you.
We'll have my visit with their co-creator, Robert Lopez, next week. And we'll meet co-director Casey Nicola and more of the cast. But now my visit with the charming and talented Gavin Creel, who plays Elder Price. Welcome to Colorado.
Thank you so much.
It was so interesting to see that you got cast in this show, because I think earlier this year you said you didn't want to have to cut your hair, and I knew you were going to have to cut your hair for this show.
Oh, you've heard about that. Yeah,
Yes.
I did. You know, I got over that quickly. I was like, it's fun sometimes to change identities, and when somebody says, we got to cast you at this part, I'm going to clean you up. My sister said, how's your hair look? And I was like, it's pretty conservative. And she said, how long is that going to last? I said, about 2.5 hours, then I leave the stage door and I'm going to muss it. Yeah. Yeah.
So you've gotten over the drama of being forced to cut your hair.
Yes.
To play this really great part.
Great part. Isn't
That
it a great
a friend
part?
of yours originated.
He's one of my closest friends in the world, Andrew Randalls, who's about to be a huge TV star on The New Normal starting in the
I
fall.
know, right?
September 11th, NBC. Watch it. I love him. But he actually got cast. They did a few workshops of the piece, and I knew about. A friend of mine, Dan Reichard, played the part at one point, and Cheyenne Jackson, another friend of mine, played the part. And
I didn't know that Cheyenne had
Cheyenne was
played it.
did one of the readings. I think a few other people played. But I remember Andrew coming to me and saying, I have this audition for the Book of Mormon. I was like, oh my gosh, you have to get it. And he booked it. They flew him out to LA, and he met Trey and Matt. And it's the greatest thing as a friend to know. I knew how brilliant he was, but he hadn't had that part to do it.
He hadn't had his thoroughly modern Millie yet.
No, he had. I was given that opportunity when I first came to. It was kind of when I first came to the city, and I got to play that incredible role and be the male lead in my first Broadway show. And I knew of Andrew how brilliant he was, and how funny he was, and how smart. And he's a brilliant writer too. It's just amazing about him. But then I saw him do it, and I was like, that's it. And then I saw him do it, and I was like, I never want to play that part because it cannot. I mean.
And yet here you are.
And Casey called me, and he was like, I really think you should think about this. And I got over my ego, my fear of like, oh God, can I do this? And my friend was so genius.
Fear?
Yeah, fear. It's a real thing.
That's a surprising thing coming from you.
It happens.
Okay.
I wish it didn't, but you surround yourself with brilliant people. Trey, Matt, Casey, who's like one of my dear friends, and I've known him since his last Broadway show was my first. And we played Phase 10 in our dressing room like nightly, and I realized if there's ever a place to take a risk and to get over fear and to jump, it's with a great friend at the helm, and he continues to push me and dare me to look deeper and have more confidence and
on the road.
Yeah, and the great thing about being in a play is we open on we officially opened on the 19th here in Denver, and Denver they get our virgins. They get our first, and it's right that we're here. Denver is like the place that we should be. I mean, Trey and Matt in Colorado, and it just feels right that we're here doing this show. But this company has never been seen before, and this show is being done at first class level. I mean, everybody's here, and we're putting this up. It's like a Broadway show sitting in the Ellie Caulkins,
It is a Broadway show sitting in the Ellie Caulkins.
Yeah.
Some of your cast, some of your company is brand new.
Yep.
Like right out of school.
Yeah.
So that means at your young age, they're looking at you as this big Broadway star.
Yeah, I guess
What
so.
does that feel like?
It feels nice, and it also feels like, are you talking to me?
No, it doesn't.
It feels like in that way, a little bit. But I have to remind myself, the humbling part is that we're all playing 19-year-olds, and I am not 19. But at the same time, I have always been, I don't know if Casey is this, but I've always been like 10 years, 12 years younger than my actual number. And you seem that way too. You just seem like vibrant and life-filled. And
thank you.
You do, and you're stunning. But like, I feel that way, and when I'm standing on stage with Gray Henson, who is genius, and I can't believe he just graduated from Carnegie Mellon, like, I'm standing on stage with an equal. He is making me a better actor. And I'm like, okay, he ups my game, and then I hopefully do the same to him. And age goes out the window and experience goes out the window, and we're here to, I don't mean to sound like a douchebag, but we're here to tell a story and to not worry about where we've been. We're here to do this now, you know?
That just proves the reputation that you've built for yourself as an actor, as a performer, as an artist, and not a star. I mean, that precedes you, and that just demonstrates that.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you.
What also precedes you is this voice you have and this amazing control. I mean, you can get up there in that A and still do...
Oh, gosh.
So tell me, what is it like to take that instrument and apply it to this role that your friend created?
Well, Andrew and I, that was one of the intimidating things. Because first of all, the part is crazy high. Andrew has this crazy high voice, and they just kind of wrote it in the keys around him. And I called him right after I started rehearsing. I was like, "You jerk! Couldn't you just like sing some like in a 10 or 2 range?" But then the more you get your body around it, you know, you get your voice around it, and you go, "Okay, I can do this," but it's going to take real discipline and a lot of sleep and a lot of water and not being crazy and not talking too much.
Especially here.
Oh yeah, it's so dry. We're in the mountains and we're so high. We do one number, we're like, "Oh, Denver, we love you, but please somebody get me some oxygen." Well, when I heard it, I thought, this is just going to take me. I can't try to be him. I can't try to act like him or sound like him. I have to do what I do and bring what I can to the part. And Casey's allowed me to do that, and Trey's allowed me to do that. And
a good production will do that.
I hope
because
so.
It has to be alive with the actor who's doing it. They have to give you that chance to create it anew, create it for yourself.
They don't always.
If they want to do it well, they do.
I know, and I agree with you, but the thing is, you don't always get you get them, so sure, you do your thing, but they always steer you back to what was done before. And I told Casey, I was like, if something works, I want to do that. I toss my ego out the door. I want to make the play good. But if you're willing, keep the door open for me to bring me forward. And
is that why you wanted to see the script stripped of all of the directions
yes.
first?
I said, I don't want to know this is when he crosses or this is what he says. You've done your homework, my goodness. I don't like seeing gasp in parentheses. I just want to see the lines. Let me read the scene. Let me make decisions based as the actor that I am, not based on. I won't listen to the soundtrack. I saw the show in previews and at Thanksgiving with my sister, and then I didn't see it again until right before we flew to Denver, because I wanted to. I'm just not good. I get in my head as an actor. Like when I did Millie, I wouldn't watch the movie. I did Mary Poppins, and I saw it when I was a kid, but I didn't want to watch it again.
And you didn't watch Twyla Tharp's take on Hair before you did Hair.
Oh no! Did she choreograph that?
The movie?
Did she really? I'm embarrassed that I didn't know that, but I haven't seen the Hair movie. I've never seen it. I just don't want to see, because it's not that. It's the opposite. It's like, I don't want to copy, because if I see somebody, then that's
right.
It's in my head.
Especially if it's done well, it imprints on you.
Oh yeah. And then all of a sudden I think, is this my choice or is this someone else's? If you were to sit here and you saw the show and you were to say to me, "I love it when you do this, this, and this," I promise you, for the rest of the run, when I get to those 3 moments, I will think of you, which is great because you're gorgeous and it's wonderful. But like, if it weren't, I don't read reviews. I don't want to know what people think about what I've done. I'm so grateful when people like it, but just come and smile and give me a hug and let's move on. Because I get so crazy in my head about it.
Well, I can't imagine that it would be easy for anyone to say anything other than how much they love the work that you've done. I've seen you in several things, and I can't wait to see you do this.
I'm excited, and I hopefully will bring something new to it for you and for the audience. And I'll tell you the one thing, when I saw it, I was like, what can I do with this? What can I... And there was one thing, and I'm not going to say it, but I'm excited to get to do that and to bring that to my Kevin Price. And I'm excited to do it across the country, but I'm most excited to be here in Denver.
Yay.
I am.
We're thrilled that you're here. Of course, we were overjoyed to hear this company was starting here for obvious reasons, but not the least of which is it's a great show.
It's a great
and it will
show.
Always forever be identified with starting here at this beautiful theater, the Ellie Caulkins.
This is it. It will never have not happened here first. Does that make sense?
That's right. And you get to come back before you're done.
Yeah,
in October, right?
Yeah, in October they're gonna have a return engagement. I don't think the tickets are on sale yet, but when they do, I mean, this sold out in 5 hours.
I know. I was one of the people trying to get a ticket.
Fantastic. I think you'll get in. They'll get you in.
Have you done a big tour like this, a full year?
I did once before when I was Gray's age, when I graduated college.
What was that?
It was Fame the Musical, which is a crazy little show, and it was one of the greatest experiences of my life. They were paying me more money than I'd ever made, which now is like a laugh. It's like, really?
You were just graduating.
Oh, I was like, money? You're gonna give me money to live in a hotel? Fabulous, you know? I just...
Saved my per diem.
I did. I roomed with like 9 people in a room, and we just, you know, I won't say what we did, but we toured the country, and I felt adult for the first time, and now it's so neat. That was 14 years ago, to come back and to get to be an adult, actually have lived and know what tour is and how to behave on tour and how to pace yourself and how to enjoy and not wait. Like when you get to a city, don't be like, oh, I'll get to it. We're only here in Denver for a month and we only get to be with this audience for 3 weeks. Mm-hmm. I'm gonna do it now. Like I got my dog with me and we head out every morning and take an hour walk down Steer, is that right?
Yeah, Spear,
that's it. Mm-hmm. And walk down the canal and out to, what's the park down there? There's like a waterfall and a rapids, and we were walking along there. And
along the Cherry Creek.
Yeah, Cherry Creek. That's it. And we went to. We're trying to see the city. Mm-hmm. Like we're not waiting to see the cities, and that's because I did it once before and I waited. So.
I can also see that not only are you feeling like an adult like you did the first time you got to go on tour, but you're capturing a spirit of youth again.
I feel
by
it.
Being able to do this. It shows.
Well, you have to. With all this dancing and everything, my joints are 36, but my attitude is 19.
19. That's right. 19.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Oh,
I
such a
cannot
pleasure.
wait to come and see you on opening night. If I could
wait.
sneak in and watch it every night, I would, because everybody I know is clamoring to get in here and see you.
Well, they can. Lottery. They can get on the lottery if they want.
I know. They announced it today. $25.
Yep. $25, 24 tickets a night. Just come. You get in, you know. Your name could get pulled and you could be part of a little bit of history. This is the first tour, so it's a pleasure to meet you.
It's my pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Even though the Book of Mormon is sold out for its first visit, you can win the ticket lottery. Visit denvercenter.org for all the details. And join us next week for more of our visit with the Book of Mormon First National Tour.
That's all for this edition. Remember to join us on Facebook and Twitter. With all that Colorado has to offer, we're here to help you keep it in focus. Thanks for watching. Good night.